Good morning. The reading is from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 16 and on. Do you not know that you are God's temple and God's Spirit lives in you? Do not fool yourselves. If you think you are wise in the world, you should become a fool so that you can be truly wise. Because the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. It is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. It is also written, God knows the thoughts of the wise, how useless they are. So there is nothing to boast about with anything human. All things belong to you. Paul, Apollos, Peter, the world, life, death, the present, and the future, all these things belong to you, and you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. People should think of us as servants of Christ, the stewards of the mysteries of God. Now it is required of stewards that they be found trustworthy. As for myself, it's a very small thing that I should be judged by you or any human court. I do not even judge myself. I know of no wrong I have done, but this does not make me right before the Lord. The Lord is the one who judges me. So do not judge me before the time, but wait until God comes. God will bring light to things that are now hidden in darkness, and will make manifest the secret purpose of the heart. Then God will praise each one of them. Brothers and sisters, I have used Apollos and myself as examples so that you could learn through us the meaning of the saying, keep to what is written. Then none of you will be puffed up into taking sides and favoring one over another. Who says you are better than others? What do you have that was not given to you? And if it was given to you, why do you brag as if you did not receive it as a gift? You think you already have everything you need. You think you are rich. You think you have become kings without us. I really wish you were kings, so we could be kings together with you. But it seems to me that God has put us apostles in last place, like those sentenced to death. We have become a spectacle to the world, to angels and to people. We are fools for Christ's sake, but you are very wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You receive honor, but we are despised. Even to this very hour, we do not have enough to eat or drink, and we are naked. We are often beaten and have no home in which to dwell. We work hard with our own hands for food. When people curse us, we bless them. When they hurt us, we suffer it. And when they tell evil lies about us, we speak kindly about them. Even today, we are treated as though we were the garbage of the world and the filth of the earth. I am not trying to make you feel ashamed, but to admonish you as my beloved children. For through you, may 10,000 instructors of Christ come. You do not have many fathers or mothers. Through the gospel, I became your father in Jesus Christ, and I beg you, please follow my example. That's why I'm sending you Timothy, my beloved son, who is faithful to the Lord. I love Timothy, and he is faithful, and he will help you remember my way of life in Christ Jesus, just as I teach it everywhere for all the churches. Some of you have become proud, thinking that I will not come to you again. But I will come to you very soon if the Lord wishes. Then I will know what the proud ones do, not what they say. Because the dominion of God is present, not in talk, but in power. What do you prefer? That I come to you with admonishment or with love and gentleness? So, not only for those here, but for all those who will hear the recording of this message. Paul is making a point about human judgment and about the values of the world versus the values of God. And this is a problem that we really still have a really hard time with as human beings. And I see it in the churches and in the world. I recently watched a film based on a true story, which was an evangelical preacher who was very popular, had a huge following, was telecast and all that good stuff. And And he received a message from Jesus that rejecting people and believing they're going to hell because they're gay or because they never had access to the word was wrong. And what Jesus told him is that everyone is already saved. And that this saving people isn't necessary, which for his faith was completely insane, right? Because that was their whole purpose in life, was to save people. That was his belief since he was young. It was his whole mission. He had spent his entire life giving service to God via saving people. And so saving people, right? And then when he shared that revelation from Jesus with the congregation, they left. Most of them left him. It was done. Huge outrage. And he was having a crisis. This crisis of if I did the right thing, why did everyone leave? And I was still, he has this belief. And this is so hard to let go of a human being, that somehow God is in the reward and punishment business. And that if things go the way you think they should, then you did the right thing. But Paul is saying here, as the apostle, as one of the founders and leaders of the church of Christianity, Paul is saying, I'm treated like garbage most of the time. I got no money. I got no safety, no security. The people that, he started these churches, and then as soon as he leaves, they're somebody else is a cooler apostle, and they're all about that dude now. This is Paul's life. He is literally risking his life and giving of himself completely to create these communities. And then a chunk of the time they turn on him as soon as he's gone, So he's saying this is our life as apostles, is being treated like garbage most of the time. Now, when we're stuck in this reward-punishment consciousness, it looks like then God is not happy with his work, right? Because God is happy with his work, he would be treated really great, and he would have an easy life, and he would be appreciated and enjoyed and had abundance of food and ease and would never have to work, to feed himself. And he wouldn't be put in jail, right? That mentality is so problematic for us because it leads us wrong in ways of God consistently. You cannot measure the spiritual life that way. It is using a worldly measuring stick for a spiritual reality. And the fact is, for so many of the most advanced spiritual beings that have come to this planet and worked, their life is full of difficulty. There is no track record for this idea. And that's why it's so impressive that we are so freaking stuck on it. We are so sure that that's what success looks like. Jesus didn't live it that way. Jesus did everything right, literally perfectly, and got beaten, abused, and killed on a cross. So why do we think that your life, if you're doing it right, is easy? That is a bizarro idea for Christians. It's not a Christian idea, people. I have to tell you this. That is not a Christian idea. Jesus didn't live it. Mary didn't live it. Paul didn't live it. No one foundational. Peter didn't live it. Peter got crucified on a cross later on, supposedly upside down or whatever, because he didn't want to be too much like Jesus, because he was humble. That's the story. But anyways, they all got tortured and killed eventually. That's not a model of prosperity gospel or whatever. This prosperity gospel and all the bullshit out there that says that you're right with God when you get a lot of money in your life. You're right with God when you have more stuff. Is so antithetical to Christianity, truly, that it's a sickness. But even if we don't do it at that level, we often do it at the ease level. Things should be easy if I'm doing the right thing. So if you can't rely on that, and what Paul's saying is I don't care that you judge me. I don't even judge myself, because what the hell do we know about what's right? I don't think I've done anything wrong. I try to do the right thing, right? But only God knows. Who can see the whole picture? Who can see the entire truth of your soul? What your capacity is? How closely you're living that capacity? How closely you're aligned with the calling of Christ or God inside you? Who can know that? God. This conscious mind can certainly not know it. So how do you judge yourself? You can't. You cannot effectively judge how well you're doing. So what do we do as mystics? You have to develop a relationship with guidance, with God inside. Because when it comes down to it, that's the only way you're going to know whether you're on track or not. Because nothing outside you can tell you that. No human being can tell you that. Not yourself and not anyone else. But we have to change this misconception in the human consciousness. And so by changing it in ourselves, this idea that if you're doing right by God, your life looks easy and wealthy and lovely. That is a sickness in the human development. It is preventing us from moving forward. And so we change it in ourselves, we teach it, we live it, and then we can help all of our brothers and sisters and in the world and also in our communities to start to change this idea. Paul is very clear about it, right? He's doing this really long sarcastic-y thing, which you might not catch at first. He's like, you guys are great, right? Apparently you're super wise. You got it all figured out. You're kings. We're crap, And it's it sounds like it's good, but you realize what he's saying is, if that's true, you're the problem. If you're doing so good, then you're not really doing the work. So he's like, apparently you're all living like kings, I wish you were really kings, so then maybe, you could give us something too, but that's not how it works, okay? So if the most advanced among you are suffering, then why are you at ease? That's what he's saying to them, If you're doing the work, you will be challenged. If you're sitting pretty, then you're probably not being challenged. But who knows, right? The only way to know is to know God and to ask God. But I encourage you to watch for this, because this is a core superstition. Superstition is like an instinctual problem with human beings. It is so deep that we have changed every religion ever created into a superstitious pattern, if it wasn't already that way. All the original religious things were superstitious. And if you look at a lot of tribal patterns, there's a lot of superstition in it. Like if you do something and then something bad happens, that was like a message that it was the wrong thing, right? And so you have to either it's evil spirits or demons or ancestors or whatever version of it is. It's all about figuring out what happened before something bad happened and then fixing it. That's a superstitious way. Figuring out what happened before something good happened and then doing more of that. That's like the basic animal instinct of our brains. It's associative learning. It's very close to everything from a bee to an ape. Like something happened and then something good happened, more of that. Something happened and then something bad happened, less of that. And then we start getting superstitious, like we can prevent something bad from happening if we do the right stuff. Right? So that is so undeveloped in us. And we are still living it out. We are still acting it out after hundreds of thousands of years of development as human beings. So let's grow out of this tendency by using consciousness and connection to God. Watch for it. Watch where superstition digs in and where people spiritual people and worldly people are trying to sell us on the idea that you can magically sort of do the right stuff and good stuff happens to you. So right now what it is using the law of manifestation to reinforce this thing. So yes, the law of manifestation is real. You can karma, what you put out comes back. You can manifest, you can create. But if you were thinking of that in terms of some kind of reward punishment system, then it devolves into something sick really fast. Because the natural conclusion is the same problem as developed in India around karma, right? So the idea of karma is there, and it's a high-level spiritual concept in reality. But how does it get applied? Like this. If you're born poor, then you probably did something wrong. So you don't deserve to be treated like a human being. You're an outcast. You're an untouchable. You're sort of a disgusting human being because obviously you did really bad shit in some other life to have earned this poverty that you were born into. And so now we're going to reinforce that, abandon, not help, and actually make sure you stay at a level of being untouchable, being a level of poverty and rejection, right? That's what human beings do with high-level realities. And that's what same thing is happening now with ideas of manifestation, prosperity gospel, all these different things, is like if you can transform your body, right? This is a beautiful reality. You can transform your physical reality. You can transform the life around you. So what do human beings do with it? With their monkey brains, with their like lizard brain, is they go, well, if you're sick, you obviously did something wrong. So you should go ask for forgiveness or something. We turn it into a fault thing, like a punishment reward thing. You're experiencing something painful, therefore you did something bad. I don't know what the bad thing is, but obviously you did something bad. And that is the opposite of Christ consciousness. So we have to root out these things, and we have to be very careful because we teach manifestation capacity, because we teach how we can interact, that we don't devolve into this punishment reward thing, because it does not help us move forward. And why? Why doesn't it work like that? Because this is not a outcome with a single cause. You can be sick physically for a lot of reasons. It could be a manifestation of misthinking. That's a possibility. It could also be a manifestation of your soul for your best interest. That an illness or a disability or some other issue is a gift from your soul to help you do something. So how do you know which one of those things it is? Same thing of what Paul is saying here. Is like, guess what? You're not going to be able to figure it out. You want to do like good and you want to judge it? Good luck. The only way we can know that is by knowing God and asking, by guidance, by developing that relationship with God inside. So, in lieu of that, reserve judgment for yourself and for other people. Assume the best. If you can't get a clear answer, if you can't be sure, and why would you be asking for other people unless you've been directly instructed to help them anyhow? You know, who's walking around going like, God, is that person's illness because of, like, why do you need to know? The only reason you would need to know is to feel superior to them, Like, I would like to know whether I should freely feel better human being than they are, God. Is their illness from misthinking? Yes, well then I feel superior to them. Well, God's not going to give you that answer. God's not interested in making you feel like you have a righteousness and judgment of other people. So, but if you're going to ask about yourself, and you can't get an answer, reserve judgment for yourself. Start with compassion. And say, well, if it is something that I need to change, I'd like to understand it. I'd like to be able to see and change. And if it's not, I'd like to practice acceptance, willingness, and humility. In other people, I'm going to assume that it is exactly what's right for them, and also have total compassion for their pain in it. Just because it's a manifestation of your soul doesn't mean it's not incredibly painful. Paul isn't saying none of the shit that's painful is painful because it's for God. It's still painful, and it deserves compassion, even if it is holy, or even if it is a mistake, or a misunderstanding, or a misthinking, or a karmic repercussion. Regardless, it warrants compassion. Jesus was never uncompassionate, even when he said, this is a result of your misthinking. Even when he directly connected it to a sin, a misunderstanding. It was never because you have manifested this, because you have sinned, you deserve to suffer, go suffer. That was never what Jesus said. Jesus said, here, let me reach out to you in compassion and love and healing. And now I say, change the pattern in yourself so you don't re-experience this. That's what Jesus said when he noted sin. He didn't say, well, of course you're suffering. You're a sinner. Go suffer. So where do we get off on that? Like, when did you find yourself a better judge than Jesus? And Jesus could see the whole soul, the whole pattern. But even Jesus said, sometimes he said, go sin no more. But for example, the man that was born blind, when the apostles said, well, was this man's sin or his parents' sin? And Jesus said, neither. He had this infirmity for the glory of God, so that it could be healed. So what do you know about why people are suffering, including yourself? So, 2 things. 1, practice getting out of the mindset of reward and punishment. It is the last era. It is the last age. It's a former age thing. We are in a next age. It is now time for human beings to come out of the reward-punishment consciousness. It's time for us to all kind of catch up evolutionarily with that. Stop trying to figure out your life or other people's lives by a superstition about whether good things or bad things happen. First of all, you can't tell good things from bad things. Second of all, even if you could, it's not a good way to measure. So, stop. I'll end with a story. It's sort of a parable about our incapacity to even determine whether something is good or bad. A man was having trouble with his crops because his horse was getting old and kind of lame. And so he went to the wise man in the village, and he said, I've heard you're a wise man, and I want to tell you this terrible thing has happened. My horse is getting lame. I can't fully plow my fields or harvest my crops, and so my family won't be able to make it through the winter. It's a terrible thing. And the wise person says, yeah, maybe, or maybe not. And he says, you're ridiculous. Like, that's a stupid thing to say, and it's useless to me, and I heard you were wise, but clearly you're not. I'm done. And then on the way home from visiting the wise person, he saw a wild stallion in the field, and he was able to capture it and bring it back. And so now he had this very young, strong, healthy horse to plow, to finish the harvesting. And so he went back to the wise person. He said, you were right. It was a good thing. I found this new horse. It's beautiful. It's strong. I can do it twice as fast. My family's going to be fine. It actually turned out fine. And the wise person said, maybe so, maybe not. And he said, what? That's ridiculous. It's obviously a good thing. And then he goes home, and his child had been riding the horse, doing the harvest, and had fallen off because the horse is kind of wild, and broken his leg. And so And so he went back to the wise person and said, oh, you were right. It wasn't a good thing. Because now my son fell off. He has a broken leg. He can't help me. He'll be put up for the winter. Blah, blah, blah. It's a terrible thing, terrible thing. The wise person says, maybe so, maybe not. Next thing happens is that the army comes through. And they're conscripting all young men into the military for a very likely death. And so but the son can't go because he has a broken leg. And so the man goes back to the wise person and says, you were right. If my son hadn't broken his leg, he would have been taken to the military and he surely would have died. It is a good thing. And the wise man says, maybe so, maybe not. Right? That's the story. It goes on like that forever, right? So a lot of times, whether we think something is good or bad will depend on what happened next. And what happened next, and what happened next. So we can't even clearly discover what's good and what's bad, much less determine then whether it is confirming that we're doing the right thing or suggesting that we're doing the wrong thing. So stop it. Let's make the prayer, change the consciousness, help support this movement out of the misunderstanding of reward and punishment consciousness, because it is holding us back as a human race, and it is holding us back individually from our spiritual development. Blessings on that.